page 43, lesson number 21. And I guess we'll finish up talking about deacons tonight. And we'll move on, getting closer to the end of the book on next Wednesday. All right. So we've talked about several good things about deacons. Tonight we want to notice a lot of their qualifications. It's been a while, maybe 2 months or so, since we've had this class. But at any rate, we'll talk about some of the qualifications of deacons tonight. All right. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot here. Okay. Yeah, that looks like it's pretty good. Let me speed up a little bit. All right, there we go. Okay, I learned quite a bit today from this book. There's a lot of good things here. Some of them we'll not be able to notice tonight, but I like the fact that he looked at some of these words and showed some ways that they were translated and things, and we'll notice some of that here in just a little bit. Do you think being a deacon is easy? It's not easy. In fact, there are some special jobs that deacons are involved in that most of us probably wouldn't want to do. But it's interesting to me, something I learned today about the jobs of deacons is how important it is to get the church involved. Of course, the ideal situation is what we're going to talk about tonight. You know, I have an instructor, and he sort of views the idea of evangelism in its perfection that, in my opinion, there is not a church in this world that can operate the way he wants it to. I mean, the things that he has laid out for our class to go and teach the congregation is not realistic. It will never happen. So, the Bible is an ideal situation. Now, it's not going to be easy to produce that in a congregation. Now, I will say this. It's not going to be easy to produce this either. But when it is produced, the church will be like a fine-tuned engine. Okay? One guy, he said, I have job security because my job is secure because nobody wants to do my job. And I want to tell you, that literally sums up the role of what most deacons have to do. It's a tough job, and a lot of people just don't want to do it. All right, let's begin. Philippians chapter 1. I'll tell you what, I want to notice several of these. Let's go to Matthew chapter 20, verses 26 through 28. I'm going to ask Miss Ginger, if she will, to read Matthew chapter 20, verses 26 through 28. And Mr. Charles Shelton, would you please read Philippians chapter 1 and verse 1? And then I'll read 2 more before we get started in our lesson today. All right? Let's ask ourselves, number 1, what does the word deacon mean? Number 2, what does a deacon do? Okay? Let's just sort of give the sum right at the beginning. All right, Matthew chapter 20, verses 26 through 28. Okay? So this word minister is the same word in the New Testament translated deacon. Now, I'll share with you what I found today. The word deacons is only found 3 times in the New Testament. Okay? But it's this word here, the same word. The word minister is the same word in the original. It's found 20 times. And then the word servant which is the same word, is found 7 times. So that's sort of the idea of what we're looking at tonight. Now, you can see he said that the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and notice, to give. If I were to serve in this role, my number one duty as a deacon would be to give. That's what a deacon does. So these special servants have a huge responsibility, and it's not always fun, but I think we'll talk about some of those roles here in just a minute. All right, think of this passage in 1 Timothy 3, verses 8 and 9, and I'm going to go back and forth between the ESV and the King James Version tonight, because some of the passages I like better in the King James, and some of them I like better in the ESV. So, but at any rate, this is our text where we're going to begin, but we're going to start in verse 10, but I had to sort of back up just a couple verses. Here's what it says. Likewise, deacons must be dignified. The King James says grave. Not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine, not greedy for dishonest gain, and they must hold the mystery of faith with a clear conscience. So that's sort of a solid foundation of what's going on for the qualifications of the deacons. Okay? And tonight, we're going to begin in just a minute here in verse 10, sort of be a little bit specific. These are self-explanatory. You know, he's got to be an honest man. Literally, that word in the original means two-word. Okay? He can't be double-toned. Of course, he cannot be an alcoholic. The same qualification for elders. Not given to wine. He can't be an alcoholic. They must hold the mystery of faith, or not greedy for dishonest gain, must hold the mystery of faith with a clear conscience. So, I'm going to pick up in 1 Timothy 3 in just a moment, but I sort of want to back up just a moment and notice 3 scriptures in the introduction tonight. All right, there was one guy, he said, I am so good at multitasking. He said, I can waste my time, be unproductive, and procrastinate all at the same time. You know, I guess we've all been there, but in my opinion, there comes a time for all ministers, whether preachers, elders, deacons, Bible class teachers, it's time to buckle down. You know, I'll be honest with you, in the past couple weeks, I thought, you know what? Maybe I've been preparing for sermons. Maybe I've been preparing for Bible classes. But I haven't been preparing for me. The most important thing, they even told me this in school, the most important thing you will ever do in your study is study for yourself. So what I tried to do, I made some healthy decisions the last couple of weeks. I said, you know what? I'll tell you, first thing I did, I deleted the Facebook app. That was a complete waste of my time. And I can't even tell you how many times I'd pull my phone out of my pocket, walking in public, and I'd just be looking on Facebook. There's nothing good on there. It's not even worth the time that I spend to take my phone out of my pocket and look. So I said, no, I'm deleting this thing. Another thing I did is I started studying the Bible for me. Because I need to be healthy. I got back on my bicycle and started riding again. I said, you know what? It's time to put away all the junk and get serious. And to me, that sort of sums up the office of any minister. Now, remember, this word deacon is not a word we use today very much. We use this only in reference to the church. But I want to tell you, all it means is a minister. So really, all members of the church, in some shape or some form, are considered ministers. Now, these guys have special qualifications. Now, the reason why is because they hold a special office. Now, we call this the office of a deacon. And it's because they have a special role. We'll talk about that in just a moment. All right, let's go to 3 passages that sort of show the office of these men. Okay, that's what I want to show you now. Let's go to Philippians 1:1. I believe Mr. Charles Shelton has that. The bishops and deacons. Some of your translations say overseers and deacons. The reason is because these overseers, the elders, are the ones who are in oversight of these men, these deacons that are specifically serving in certain areas. Now, I want to ask you a question in just a moment and see what you think about it. But to me, deacons are the missing link in the church growth today. I mean, just think about it. If we could go back to first century pattern for what deacons have as responsibilities, man, the church would be on fire. I mean, you couldn't hold back the times we would have to rebuild on this building. Because I want to tell you, these men have special opportunities, in my opinion, to do some really, really good stuff. All right, let's see here. I'm trying to find out. All right, I'm going to get there in just a second. I've got two more. Okay, I told you I was going to give you three. I've got two more. In John chapter 12, verse 26, he said, "If a man serve me, let him follow me where I am, and there shall my servant be." That's the same word translated deacon, by the way. "If any man serve me, him will my Father honor." So these guys, man, have a special role, and Jesus has his eye on them. And he said, "I will give them special honor." And then lastly, "If thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good deacon." You could put that there. You will be a good deacon. You know, the King James says minister. Minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and good doctrine, whereunto thou hast attained. So that tells me this man, he needs to be nourished. Okay? Well taught. He's not a perfect guy, but you can rely on him. All right, you know where he's going to be at on Sunday and Wednesday. He is a good, faithful man. All right, here's my question that I want to ask you, and I want to get the wheels turning a little bit. And I'm going to notice two sort of controversial things at the end of class. Maybe we'll have a little bit of time to discuss those. But I want to ask this question. What are some ways that the office of a deacon can be used? There's really no wrong answer here, but I'm just curious of what you're thinking. What can a deacon do to be productive?
Care for the widows.
Oh, yeah, care for the widows. That's a good one. In fact, that's one I didn't think of to put on there. But in Acts chapter 6, that's something that was going wrong, wasn't it? They were forgetting the widows in the daily ministration. All right, anything else? Definitely. Yes, sir.
And over the building's ground, they can over benevolence, and you just keep on going.
Sure enough. Yes, sir. And he sort of mentioned kind of what I had in mind here. There are really three main areas of church service. There is evangelism, benevolence, and edification. And pretty much every area will fall under one of those three categories. Okay, so I'll kind of sort of share with you a little bit of what I come up with today. And I'm thinking I'm thinking out of the box here. Okay, I didn't sit there and think of what already is going on. So there's already a lot going on, especially here at the Ripley Church. We're thankful for all of our deacons, the work that they do. We're thankful for our overseers and the work that they do. So what I did was I wanted to think out of the box a little bit. So I sort of tried to brainstorm and come up with some things that churches don't normally do, you know. We look out in churches in the United States, and I was thinking, you know, what are some things that we could do that people are not already doing? What about a benevolent event hosted by the Ripley Church of Christ? I mean, I was thinking in my office when I was studying for this, I thought, wouldn't it be totally awesome if we could have maybe some kind of event that the community knew was run and operated by the Ripley Church of Christ every single year that was a benevolent event? I mean, who knows what it could be? Maybe it could be a 5K run to raise money for children who are diabetic and their parents can't afford to buy their insulin. I don't know. That's probably not a good one. Everybody does St. Jude. I'm trying to think of something different. You know, and we could honestly say, the Ripley Church of Christ is responsible for raising this money, and we are going to donate it to the Pineville Children's Home. Or, you know, it's a benevolent event. And it says God is getting the glory from the Ripley Church of Christ. What about evangelism seminars? You know, we really don't hear about that in churches much, do we? I mean, what if we hosted a seminar every year that was specifically designed for outreach in the community? Man, that'd be neat. What about church outings, you know, where the church just says, hey, why don't we plan a trip? The ARC trip. A lot of people went on the ARC trip. I thought that was pretty neat. That was a good idea. Something like that. We already do mission outreach. In fact, there's something going on in February. I think, aren't we having a mission forum here in February? When is that? In April. Okay, yeah, the lectureship is in February. But I thought that was pretty neat. You know, I'd never known of us doing that before. And we had a meeting, and I was like, well, this is getting interesting. I like that. Visitation programs. You know, what if we had a deacon who was just excited about visiting, and he'd get people involved, say, hey, why don't you come visit with me? Anyway, there's a bunch of these on here. Something that we did in Meridian that I love, and it may be hard for everybody in the congregation to do it here because we're sort of a lot larger, but we had a holiday Christmas party every year, and we played Dirty Santa. Now, I know like the elders and deacons and things, we do that every year, but I'm talking about for all the members of the congregation. That would be pretty cool. If we just piled up over in the fellowship hall and grilled a bunch of hamburgers and who knows what, you know, it'd be pretty neat. Have a holiday party. It's things like that, you know. We need people to oversee those, because I want to tell you, the elders, they can't do it all. It's just so much. The preacher's only one man, you know, he just can't do it all. But if we had like these 3 deacons over this area doing this, you know, that it would help a lot. I know we already do a lot of that, but anyway, I'm just trying to see what else is out there, you know, beyond the horizon that's already going on. All right, let's get into the heart of this then, and let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 3. Let's notice what the Bible is teaching here as far as these qualifications go in 1 Timothy chapter 3. All right, will somebody read verse 10? Okay. I think the King James says, let them be proved. I like the word tested. I'm using this. This here is the ESV, and then I have my authorized version here, but the King James. But I really like the ESV in this part because to be proved, yeah, I mean, I can understand, but it literally has this idea of he has to take a test. And he has to pass. What if he's been a deacon for a couple months, but nothing has happened? You know, I think about an owner of a business who hires a new CEO, and he tells him when he hires him, he said, right now, we are a $10 million company. And in 2 years, if you don't reach $20 million, you're fired. I mean, because that's pretty much what's going to have to happen. You know, he's applying for this CEO job, and that owner's going to look at him and tell him, this is what I expect from you in this amount of time. And if it doesn't work out, we're going to find someone to fill your spot. To me, that's very similar. You know, God is saying, let's just see first if He can do it. Because not everybody can. It's not easy. All right. This word, proved, in the King James, tested here, is also found in 1 John chapter 4, verse 1. Okay, when he said, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, whether they're of God. For many false prophets are gone out into the world. So just as these deacons are being tested, it's like we are testing whether or not a man is teaching the truth. We want to see, like, all right, what is he capable of? And to me, that's sort of the idea. I think that's a good rule of thumb for any situation as well. All right, any question or comment before I go on? All right. If you look on page 43 under the letter A, he said, we continue to consider the qualifications of deacons. Let the use the office of a deacon. And that's where I want to continue at this time. So we've thought about different ways it can be used. You know, of course, the education stuff was mentioned. Of course, we have the finances and all that. But let's talk about the word blameless. What does that mean? I wonder how many of us in this room could say about ourselves that we were blameless. I'll be honest with you, when I first look at that word, I'm like, ooh, you know, that's not easy. But it may not be what you're thinking, okay? It doesn't mean that this guy is not perfect. The same qualification is mentioned in the elders in the previous verses of 1 Timothy chapter 3. The elder has also to be blameless. But let me ask you something. You ever think there's a time in my life, in the elder's life, or in a deacon's life when he's done something wrong? Yeah. So when we're thinking about this word, it's not initially what we're thinking. We're thinking, well, it can be that he never does anything wrong. No, it is he's always trying to do right, no matter what, in every situation. Is he going to fall short from time to time? Yeah, maybe so. But here's my question. Can he pick himself back up on his own? If he can't, he doesn't need to serve. The same would be true with me. The same would be true with anybody who wants to serve in a spiritual role. And I will tell you, I'm taking a class on spiritual leadership, and I've even seen this very clearly. It is hard to lead people when I cannot even pick myself up off the ground. Does that mean I'm never going to fall? You better believe I'm going to fall. But I've got to be able to say, no, I'm getting up. And I'm getting up right now. If I can't do that, I don't need to serve. The same is true in this role as well. All right, now let's talk about this word blameless. You look at number 12. He said blameless in the Greek, and I don't know if I can pronounce that, so I'm not going to pronounce it, but it means to be unaccused. Okay? The idea is he's not a smoker. He's not a drinker. He's not a this or a that. Something that identifies him, you know, that you can grab a hold of him and say, this is who he is. But I'll be honest with you, I've known of a deacon, or heard of it anyway, who went and bought a bottle of liquor. And he drank. You probably have heard of a man who went and bought a cigar and smoked. And to us, we think, ooh, man, you know, no, he don't need to be a deacon anymore. Well, wait a minute, give him a chance. Does he know it's wrong, number one, and can he fix it, number two? If he can fix it on his own, is he still blameless or is he not? In my opinion, a man can. He can fix it. He can resume the status of being blameless again. But if he cannot fix that problem, and it's something that ails him all the time, and he says, you know what, I just don't know if I can quit drinking. I don't know if I could quit chewing tobacco. In my opinion, that'd be something different altogether. He would not be blameless then anymore. All right, you look at the letter B there, you find several ways that this is described. And in one of the terms that I found, it means you cannot arrest him. You cannot catch him by his clothes, is literally what that means. You cannot catch him in a corner. Okay, that's the idea. So the first one, it says he's irreproachable, he is unaccused, he is unblemished. Okay? He does what is right, and you can always rely on him to do what's right. All right, let me give you some scriptures. In fact, let's just read some together. I want to go to Titus chapter 1 and verse 6. Titus chapter 1 and verse 6. And Colossians chapter 1 verses 21 and 22. There's one in the middle there. I'll notice it just on the screen there. All right, if somebody can, will you read Titus chapter 1 and verse 6? Mrs. Smart, she was looking through her purse at church. She was going to give something to the preacher, and anyway, he looked down and he saw a TV remote in her purse, and he said, Mrs. Smart, I got to ask you, do you always bring your remote to church? And she said, well, no, but my husband wouldn't come to church with me this morning, so he's not going to watch any TV this morning. You know, she was there to keep him in line, and I think this is more the idea of what a blameless is. He can keep it in line. Okay? Titus chapter 1, verse 6, if you're there. Okay. Insubordination. You know, this guy's at church all the time. He's not a guy that's going to say, is he going to be unfaithful next month? You know, I wonder where so-and-so is at when he's on vacation or whatever. No, we know what he's doing. If he can't find a place to worship God, he's worshiping God somewhere or somehow. We know that he is a faithful individual. Now, this context is about elders, but it's the same for deacons. All right, I'll notice this one. This is also about the eldership. 1 Timothy 3:2, therefore an overseer must be above reproach. Okay, that's the same word, blameless. He is above reproach. Husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. You say, well, what does it mean to be above reproach? We just told us, right? Husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. All that means he is above reproach. Now, the good news is, I want to sort of make application here before I move on. I got about 3 or 4 minutes. I was hoping to get through most of this. In Colossians chapter 1 and verse 21 and 22, I love the King James here because it literally says that he will present us, when we're in the body, he will present us unblameable and unreprovable in his sight. Now, I don't know about you, but I like that. That's what Jesus does for people who are faithful to him. He says, look, I'm going to present you to God unblameable. Well, that's sort of an application there. I got a few things I want to notice quickly. I'll tell you what, I'm going to skip this, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions tonight. We got just a couple minutes to discuss. It says that a deacon has to be the husband of one wife. If his wife dies, does he need to step down?
he was the husband of one wife.
Yeah. A lot of people have differing views on that, and literally in the original, it means he cannot have multiple wives. Because polygamy is very popular during this time, it's very normal in that day and time as far as a secular aspect is concerned. So literally in the original, he cannot have multiple wives. My view is, and it doesn't make a hill of beans because I'm not an elder and I don't have to make this decision, but my view is if a man's wife dies while he is serving, he does not have to give up his office. In fact, that is James Pilgrim's view in the book. He mentions that a little bit later. But in my opinion, his qualification has not been taken away. He's still the husband of one wife. Even if his wife died and he remarried, he is still the husband of one wife. He only has one. His other one died. Okay?
You and Elmer once that was married 3 times.
Yeah.
First 2 wives to have, he was married the 3rd time, and I think he kept his position as an elder.
Yeah. In my opinion, that would be the right way to go, but I think some church members wouldn't like it, and I wouldn't press it, okay? If it was going to cause a problem in the congregation, I'd say, you may want to back off the position and not serve. But at any rate, the idea is you don't have to tend to multiple women. Okay? You and I both know that would be ridiculous. A man cannot serve as office in an elder and be sleeping in different bedrooms. That's what he's saying. Okay? Now, the next one is he has to have his children and his house ruling them well. So does that mean if he only has one child that he can't serve? Because the Bible says his children.
The way I've always heard that is if you ask us with children, even if you only have one kid, you raise your hand.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, Genesis 21 and verse 7, Abraham's wife, it says, in a paraphrase, I can't quote it right now, but that she gave children suck. But at that time, she only had one. So that's kind of the idea. The qualification is, can he rule his house well, having children in his home, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. To me, that does not... Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, because I'll tell you, I was a child on up into my 20s. That's a good question. We'll talk more about these next time when we sit down again. Thank you.